Is it just a question of when one from the Somalis ethnic group in Kenya will be the best choice for the top job? How did the Kenya-Somalia relationship begin? How has it been? And what does the future hold? My name is Brian Moses Owano, and this is Atlas Insider. To unravel this puzzle, let's journey back to the 20th century when Africa was a chessboard for the European powers. Kenya found itself under British rule, while Italy held sway over Somalia. The colonial era was a time of significant transformation for both countries. One of the most profound impacts was the establishment of borders drawn with little regard with the traditional tribal territories. This arbitrary line on the map would go on to shape destinies of Kenya and Somalia in ways colonial power could hardly have imagined. At the heart of my story is the Somali ethnic group, a vibrant community that found itself settling in its newly formed boundaries. Imagine waking up one day to find that there is an invisible line drawn by a distant power, now separating you from your kin. This was the reality with Somali people, with families and friends now divided between British Kenya and Italian Somalia. The Kenyan colonial powers had their own agendas, of course. For the British, Kenya was a jewel, a land of vast resources and potential. And for the Italians, they saw Somalia as a vital outpost for their own colonial ambitions, a foothold in the strategic Horn of Africa. But what did this mean for the Somali people? In one hand, they were subject to the whims of their colonial master, and in the other hand, they were in a unique position with a foot in both countries. This dynamic would sow the seed of future conflicts, but also create unique opportunities for cultural exchange and collaboration. As the decades rolled on, the winds of change began to blow across Africa. The climate for independence grew louder, and on the mid-20th century, both Kenya and Somalia were on the path to self-rule. But the legacy of colonial rule and the challenges posed by the Somali community, divided loyalty will not be easily overcome. By the time of independence, the state was set for a complex relationship between these two nations, but that, dear listener, is a story for another time. Independence brought new challenges, including the little-known Shifter War. As Kenya celebrated the newfound sovereignty in 1960s, it was soon plunged into a successionist conflict, a clash that would strain its relationship with the neighboring Somalia. The Shifter War, as it came to be known, was not really a clash of nations, but a conflict deeply rooted in conflict identities and colonial boundaries. As the dust of colonial rule settled, a significant ethnic group found themselves within the borders of newly independent Kenya. This Somali Kenyan, known as the Shifters, wanted to secede from Kenya and join their ethnic class in Somalia. Fueled by a shared culture, language, and a sense of belonging, the Shifter launched a violent insurgency against the Kenyan government. The Kenyan government responded with a state of emergency in the northern frontier district, which was predominantly Somali. This marked the beginning of Shifter War, a conflict characterized by guerrilla warfare, a brutal succession tactic. Meanwhile, Somalia, a country also freshly minted from the throne of colonial rule, actively supported the Shifters' insurgency. The Somali government provided arms, training, and more support to the Shifter, much to the chagrin to the Kenyan government. This support ruined the diplomatic relations between two East African neighboring nations, setting a contentious tone that would endure for decades. The Shifter War proved to be a significant test to Kenyan young government. It was a battle not only against an armed insurgency, but also against a divisive vestiges of the colonial rule. The war eventually ended in the late 1960s with the Arusha Memorandum, an agreement that saw Somalia withdraw its support for the shifters in exchange of Kenya assurance of protection of Somalis right within its borders. But while the gun fell silent, the echoes of the shifter war continued to reverberate. The war had exposed the fragile nature of Kenya-Somalia relationship. A relationship marked with mistrust and competition. The shifter war ended, but its effect on Somali-Kenya relationship lingered. In the year 1970, a new conflict that further complicated the Kenya-Somalia relationship erupted, the Ogaden War. A territorial dispute between Ethiopia and Somalia over the Ogaden region erupted in 1977. Kenya, a neighboring nation, finds itself in a precarious position as a neutral entity, trying to mediate the conflict, but this role was not without its challenges. As Kenya's intentions were noble, its involvement was viewed as an interference with some fractions in Somalia. This perception led to heightened tension, which casted a shadow in Kenya-Somalia relationship. The situation was further strained by the influx of refugees from Somalia to Kenya during and after the war. Despite the challenges, Kenya's role in the Ogaden War showcased its commitment to regional stability and peace. However, the war also highlighted the fragility of the relationship. The Ogaden War was a turning point between Kenya and Somalia relationship. In recent years, this relationship has been marked by conflict and diplomatic tension. A key contributor to the tension is the Al-Shabaab insurgency. Al-Shabaab, a military group with its origin in Somalia, has conducted a numerous attack on Kenyan soil, resulting to Kenyan military involvement in Somalia. Kenya's objective was to create a buffer zone between itself and the chaos in Somalia. However, this has not been without its controversies. Kenya's military involvement in Somalia is seen by some as an act of aggression, while others view it as a necessary measure for national security. The complexity of the situation is further amplified by the presence of African Union machinery in Somalia, AMISOM, which includes Kenyan forces. This mission, backed by the AU, aims to support the federal government of Somalia in its efforts to win against Al-Shabaab. Kenya's involvement in this war has seen Kenya receiving revenge missions from the Al-Shabaab terror group, including the April 2014 Garissa University attack, which was the group's deadliest attack in the nation, killing 148 people. Another significant source of tension between these two nations is the maritime boundary dispute. These disputes involve a triangular area in the nation's ocean rich in oil and gas claimed by both Somalia and Kenya. The matter reached the International Court of Justice, with Somalia claiming the boundary should be an extension of the land border, while Kenya argues for a parallel line to the latitude. This conflict has strained the relationship between Kenya and Somalia, leading to periods of severities. However, the relationship between these two nations is not defined by conflict alone. Both countries have shown a commitment to dialogue and peaceful resolution. There have been numerous instances of diplomatic engagements with the intention of solving disputes and strengthening the bilateral ties. In the face of these challenges, Kenya and Somalia continues to navigate their shared history, geographical proximity, and intertwined destinies. The path hasn't been smooth, and the future may still hold many challenges, but it's a journey both nations are committed to, anchored with the hope of peace, stability, and prosperity. The significant factor of this relationship is the large, growing Somali population in Kenya. This is as a result of historical migrations, conflicts, and economic opportunities, creating a rich tapestry of intermingled cultures and shared histories. Let's delve into the economic perspective. The Somalis have significantly contributed to the local economies, particularly in the trade and real estate sectors. Cities like Eastleigh in Nairobi is bustling with Somali-owned businesses. Tourism economy has also had a significant share of Somali's engagement, with the Kenyan Tourism Research Report indicating a 53% increase in tourists visiting from Somalia in 2022 compared to 2021, a surge that is expected to grow in 2023 going forward after the President William Ruto ordered the reopening of Kenya-Somalia border that has remained closed for over a decade due to Al-Shabaab attacks and the relaunch of direct Kenya Airways flight in 2024 to Mogadishu, a route that was temporarily stopped in 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic. It has also enriched the country's cultural mosaic, introducing unique traditions, cuisines, and music. Politically, the Somali population today has a profound influence in Kenyan politics. Somali Kenyans have held and continues to hold key political positions, especially in President Ruto's government. Names like Honorable Aden Duale, Nurdin Haji, and Amin Mohamed Ibrahim flies high in key security positions. This is just but a few to mention. However, this political involvement has never been without controversies. Allegations of dual loyalty has sometimes lingered in the minds of other Kenyan citizens. Despite these challenges, the Somali population in Kenya has continued to grow. According to the 2019 census, 2,780,502 ethnic Somalis live in Kenya. Among these individuals are a number of ethnically Somali international migrants, around 300,000 of whom inhabit the wider East and South Africa region. These ethnic Somali are distinct from the Bantu and other minority of Somalia, who, according to USAID, constitute most of the estimated 413,170 refugees from Somalia in Kenya, a number that is expected to grow even after the Kenya-Somalia border remains open. What does the future hold for the Somalis? Is it just a question of when the star will shine brighter for them? Only time will tell. My name is Brian Moses Owano, and this is Atlas Insider.